Welcome back. For the first time, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump go head-to-head in a debate. According to the latest poll, going into the debate, NPR said between 6 and 8% of voters in swing states were still undecided.
So the big question is, did Trump or Harris change anybody's minds, or did they sway into the undecided voters out there? Joining us right now to talk about that and much, much more is Dr. Ronald Schmidt. He's a political science professor at USM. Dr. Schmidt, do you feel like any of the candidates scored points last night or maybe lost points with any voters?
The former president had a bad night last night, and he very well could have lost points among independent voters. That's not a big group at this point, but it can be a decisive group when you have an election that's this close. I doubt at this point if there are people who are very much in his camp that last night would sway them. It might make them feel a little less energetic, a little less excited. And again, when the race is this close, morale is huge as a factor.
How about with Harris? Do you think that she gained any points or lost any points?
I think she definitely probably added to the enthusiasm of her base. She had a good night, to the contrary of the former president. And I think she did a lot of the things that she needed to do. She had a lot on her slate. She touched base with just a few policy ideas. She could have expanded on that a little bit more. But otherwise, you know, she introduced herself to the audience. She kept Donald Trump on his heels. I think she probably, at the very least, made her base more excited about participating.
Before we ask you about how important debates are, you said she came out right away, punching or whatever. How about how she came out of the stage right out the gate? She went over to Donald Trump.
Yes.
Not only shook his hand, but like introduced herself to him like, I'm Kamala Harris, because they'd never met before. Did that have some kind of an impact, you think?
I think it did, yeah. I don't think he was ready for that. And it also helped her to make the point that he and his campaign have repeatedly been mispronouncing her name. And so that gave her a chance right off the bat to correct him, which is going to wind up being a sort of a theme through the evening, and also to sort of be on his territory.
Well, let's take a listen at some of the talking points from last night. Here's a taste of everything from inflation, abortion, and immigration. Take a look and listen.
I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation.
The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
For years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done.
What we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in.
All right, so Professor, did anything stand out to you in those responses?
The topic of abortion, the vice president was very much ready to go in discussing that, and the former president was less ready than I expected him to be. That's clearly a sensitive spot for the Trump campaign, and also potentially something that divides him from the kind of independent voters he's hoping to win. And I think he tried to sort of still finesse both sides of that, and last night just wasn't the time for that.
With the 90 minutes, what was your biggest takeaway, you think, in that debate last night?
I think that Harris succeeded in establishing for herself a public persona of someone who's up for the job. It's vague, you know, you can't quantify this kind of skill, but being able to be presidential, to give that appearance, to instill a sense of confidence in voters that you can do the job is huge, and it's hard to manage, and I think she pulled it off.
Now, while we couldn't find a watch party for Republicans, we did find a Democratic watch party that Governor Mills attended. Here's what she said right after the debate.
We just witnessed a former president of the United States who was beyond dazed and confused. He was mentally disintegrating. Confused is a mild word for what we just saw in former President Donald Trump. And on the other hand, we saw Kamala Harris put together some plans and talk about policies and talk about what she could do for the American people and moving forward. The contrast couldn't be more clear. If you were in high school learning to debate, you would never engage in mudslinging and call people stupid the way we heard the former president talk this evening. That is appalling and embarrassing. It's embarrassing for our stature in the world.
Well, here's the one thing we were talking about. You heard the governor use the word stupid. Do you think personal attacks are name calling help or hurt in a debate or a campaign?
This is one of those answers I have to qualify where 10 years ago, I wouldn't. I think generally speaking that they're not a good way to go. I think they make it more difficult to talk about policy, which is really important. And I think they turn off a lot of voters. But we've seen they can energize a candidate's base if they are seen at being skillful at delivering insults or at being unable to counter them. And so there's a way in which it pays off.
There is less than 2 months to go now before the election, and Fox News is apparently offering to put on a debate in October. Do you think there should be another one, or do you feel like we saw everything we needed to see last night?
Debates have a number of things that are important. Last night Harris was able to introduce herself, and I think that was key for the election. Also, debates are a time when candidates can make promises. They can come out and talk about policies they support, and that's part of how our representative system works. Someone says they're going to do X or try to do X. I can hold them accountable to that if I voted for them. And we didn't get very much of that last night. So another debate might be a chance to really get into that sort of thing.
Professor, we appreciate your insight into the debate last night. It makes me want to take one of your classes now.
Oh, by all means.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And hopefully we'll have you on as the election gets closer and closer too.
I'd be happy to.